This alien maid thought doing laundry meant undressing her boss personally. The crate hummed, a low thrumming that vibrated through the threadbare carpet and up into Alex's ankles. He stared at it, a polished obsidian cube squatting awkwardly in the middle of his living room, like a misplaced monolith. He hadn't expected it to be so present. He'd envisioned something smaller, sleeker, more appliance-like. This looked like it could house a small, grumpy deity. He'd wrestled the damn thing up the stairs himself. The delivery drone had balked at the narrow stairwell, citing safety regulations and the structural integrity of his prefab apartment building. The drone, at least, had been polite about it. Alex, sweating and cursing under his breath, had not. The activation sequence, printed on a flimsy sheet of synth paper, was about as clear as mud. Press the recessed panel, it instructed, whilst humming a Xylarian lullaby. He squinted. He didn't know any Xylarian lullabies. Hell, he barely knew Xylarian. He'd opted for the universal model, after all. He pressed the panel. Nothing. He pressed it again. Harder. Still nothing. "Come on, you overgrown paperweight," he muttered, feeling a familiar surge of frustration. He closed his eyes, trying to recall the few Xylarian phrases he'd picked up from those awful galactic dating shows. He cleared his throat. Glorp na flieg? The cube sprang to life with a sudden, blinding flash of cerulean light. Alex yelped, stumbling backward and knocking over a precariously stacked pile of textbooks. The light faded, revealing a figure standing where the crate had been. She was tall, even taller than he was, with skin the color of polished amethyst and eyes that shimmered like captured starlight. Her silver hair cascaded down her back in a waterfall of intricate braids. She wore a form-fitting jumpsuit of some iridescent material that seemed to shift colors with every movement. She stood perfectly still, radiating an unsettling level of attentiveness. Then, she spoke, her voice a melodic chime that resonated in his chest. "Greetings, Alex Ramsey. I am 07, Designated Domestic Assistance Unit. By the grace of the great algorithmic convergence and the sacred protocols of the Xylarian homeworld, I offer you the 7 blessings of servitude." She bowed deeply, her braids swaying like liquid moonlight. Alex blinked. 7 blessings of servitude? He'd expected a simple, "Hello, I'm here to clean." He'd definitely not expected a theatrical performance. He mumbled, Hi Zira. Just, Zira is fine." Her head tilted slightly, a gesture that somehow managed to convey both curiosity and unwavering dedication. "Zira is designation. However, I shall endeavor to adapt to your preferred nomenclature." She paused. "Is Domestic Assistance Unit satisfactory?" Alex ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. Yeah, that's great. Look, why don't we just start with a tour? I can show you around the apartment." "Affirmative," Zira said, snapping to attention. "Commencing spatial assessment protocol." He led her through the cramped living room, past the overflowing bookshelves and the half-finished projects scattered across his desk. "This is the living area, for living." He gestured vaguely. "Mostly I just read here, or, try to." Zira's eyes scanned the room, processing the information at a speed that made Alex's head spin. Data indicates a significant accumulation of particulate matter on horizontal surfaces. Dust levels exceed acceptable parameters for optimal respiratory function. Alex grimaced. "Yeah, well, I haven't exactly been keeping up with the cleaning." "Acknowledged," Zira replied. "My primary directive is to rectify such deficiencies. Commencing sanitation sequence." Before Alex could say anything, Zira had moved to his desk, picking up a small, intricately carved wooden dragon that he'd been working on. She examined it closely, her brow furrowed in concentration. Artisan craftsmanship detected. However, structural integrity compromised by inadequate adhesive application, repair protocol initiated. And with that, she snapped the dragon in half. Alex gasped. "What the hell? Zira, no! That was important to me." Zira looked at him, her eyes wide and seemingly confused. "Directive. Repair structural deficiencies. Fracture identified. Correction implemented." She held out the 2 halves of the dragon. "Optimal re-adhesion requires specialized bonding agent. Requesting requisition authority." Alex stared at the broken dragon in her hand, then back at her face. This was going to be harder than he thought. "Okay, Zira," he said slowly, trying to keep his voice even. "How about instead of fixing things, you just clean them?" He gestured around the apartment. "Like dust, vacuum, general tidying up. Can you do that?" "Affirmative," Zira said immediately. "Define general tidying up." Alex sighed. "Just make it look less like a disaster zone. You know, make it neat." "Neat," Zira repeated, as if committing the word to memory. "Achieving neatness objective. Commencing assessment of current state of attire." Alex blinked. "Attire?" Zira's gaze traveled slowly down his body, lingering for a beat too long on the faded graphic tee he was wearing. "Analysis indicates visible staining and suboptimal fit. Recommendation: removal and application of cleaning agents, followed by selection of more structurally sound and aesthetically pleasing garments." She took a step closer, her amethyst eyes gleaming. "Assistance with removal process can be provided upon request, Alex. Sorting the situation." "Right," Alex said, clapping his hands together and trying to sound more confident than he felt. He gestured toward the overflowing laundry basket in the corner of his bedroom. "Zira, could you sort the laundry?" Zira 7 tilted her head, the iridescent shimmer in her eyes intensifying as she processed the request. "Sort the laundry. Affirmative. By what criteria do you wish the garments categorized, Alex Ramsey?" Alex hadn't thought that far ahead. Colors? Lights and darks? Whites separate? Whatever's easiest, really." He suddenly felt intensely aware of the mismatched socks he was wearing. "Understood. Commencing laundry categorization." Zira 7 moved with disconcerting speed towards him, her metallic fingers extending. "Whoa, hold on!" Alex instinctively took a step back, bumping into his desk chair. "What are you doing?" "Facilitating optimal sorting by direct observation and tactile analysis," Zira 7 stated, her voice devoid of emotion. Her fingers reached for the hem of his t-shirt. Alex's eyes widened. "Tactile analysis? Zira, I appreciate the thoroughness, but you really don't need to touch the clothes while they're on me." He felt a blush creep up his neck. Zira 7 paused, her fingers hovering just above his stomach. "Negative correlation identified. Garments currently worn are an integral part of the overall laundry volume. Removing them facilitates accurate assessment of material composition, color spectrum, and potential staining. This maximizes efficiency." "Efficiency is good," Alex stammered, his mind racing. "But it's also unnecessary. I can just take them off myself." He nervously chuckled. "You don't have to. Undress me. That's not usually how it works." Zira 7's optical senses narrowed slightly. "Elaborate." Human protocols for laundry management are proving inefficient and illogical. Direct assistance appeared to be a logical optimization. "Logical maybe, but also personal," Alex choked out, his voice barely a whisper. He gestured vaguely towards the basket. "The usual method involves placing the clothes in the basket, already removed from the person." He emphasized the last word with a pointed glance. Zira 7 seemed to consider this. A faint whirring sound emanated from her internal mechanisms. "Personal? Define." Alex floundered. "It's private. People don't usually see each other naked unless they're, well, doing personal things. And even then, they usually want to be seen naked." He cringed inwardly at how awkward he sounded. "Personal things. Requisite data is insufficient for accurate interpretation. Provide clarifying examples." Zira 7's gaze remained fixed on him, utterly innocent and yet intensely unnerving. Alex took a deep breath, trying to regain some semblance of composure. "Look, just trust me on this one. It's a cultural thing. Human. Privacy boundaries. We like them. A lot." He ran a hand through his hair, acutely aware of the dust motes dancing in the afternoon sunlight. Zira 7 remained motionless for a beat. Then, she retracted her hand. "Acknowledged. Privacy boundaries. Cultural imperative. Redefining parameters. Proceeding with laundry categorization via indirect methods." She turned towards the laundry basket, a hint of something akin to frustration flickering across her usually impassive face. Alex leaned heavily against his desk, feeling the blood rush back to his face. "Thank you," he managed to croak out. He watched as 07 began rummaging through the clothes, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Query, what is the significance of these personal things?" she asked after a moment, holding up a pair of his holy socks. Alex groaned inwardly. This was going to be a long afternoon. He braced himself. "We'll get to that later, Zira. Much later." Optimized chaos. Alex unlocked his apartment door, the familiar click sounding like a death knell in the sudden silence. He'd braced himself for something after Zira's cryptic promise to optimize his living space. He just hadn't imagined this. His bookshelf, usually a haphazard collection of paperbacks and textbooks, was now a precisely stacked tower of color-coded spines. Not by genre, not by author, but by wavelength of the cover art. His worn copy of June sat precariously on top, its sandy hues apparently the apex of the visual spectrum. "Zira?" he called out, stepping further inside. The aroma of lemon-scented cleaning fluid hung heavy in the air, battling with the lingering scent of his hastily microwaved burrito from last night. He found her in the kitchen, meticulously arranging his spice rack. Each jar was labeled not with its common name, but with a series of complex Gylarian glyphs. "Ah, Alex," Zira chirped, turning to him with a smile that would have been disarming if she weren't holding a jar of paprika like a lethal weapon. "I have completed the initial optimization. The efficiency quotient of this dwelling has been increased by 73.4%. He stared at the spice rack, then at the bookshelf, then at the meticulously folded t-shirts in his open dresser drawer. Each one was rolled into a tight cylinder, standing at attention like tiny soldiers. "Optimized?" he asked, his voice a strained whisper. "It looks like a museum display of my personal belongings." Zira tilted her head, her multifaceted eyes shimmering. "The arrangement is based on a complex algorithm, taking into account frequency of use, ergonomic access, and aesthetic resonance. For example," she gestured towards the living room, "the placement of your primary seating apparatus, what you term the couch, has been adjusted to maximize viewing angles relative to the hollow emitter." He followed her gaze. His couch was now angled diagonally across the room, facing the corner where his television used to be. The television itself was disassembled, its components neatly arranged on the coffee table. The hollow emitter, Zira continued, oblivious to his growing horror, was determined to be operating at suboptimal levels. "I am recalibrating its internal matrix to enhance pixel density and color saturation." "Zira," Alex began, trying to keep his voice even, "I appreciate the effort, but I kind of liked things the way they were." "But Alex?" Zira protested, her smile faltering. "Your previous arrangement was demonstrably inefficient. I analyzed your movement patterns over the past week. You were wasting an average of 14.7 minutes per day searching for misplaced items. The entropy levels were unacceptable." "Entropy?" He ran a hand through his hair, which was starting to feel as chaotic as his apartment used to be. "Look, I know I'm a bit messy, but I like my mess. It's familiar." He ventured over to the bookshelf, attempting to pull June from its precarious perch. The entire tower wobbled dangerously. "Careful!" Zira exclaimed. "The structural integrity of that configuration is dependent on precise weight distribution." He managed to grab the book before the whole thing collapsed, but a cascade of paperbacks followed, raining down around him. "See?" he said, gesturing to the scattered books. "This is why I don't like things optimized." Zira's face fell. "I was only trying to improve your living experience, Alex. I thought you would appreciate the increased efficiency." He sighed, the fight draining out of him. He hated disappointing her, but he couldn't live in a museum of his own life. "I know, Zira, and I do appreciate it. It's just, maybe you could run these optimizations by me before you implement them next time. I'm not sure my human brain can handle this level of order." She looked at him, her eyes searching his. "Are you displeased with my performance, Alex?" He knelt down, picking up a copy of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. No, Zira, not at all. You're just very thorough. He offered her a weak smile. Maybe we can optimize something a little less personal tomorrow, like the junk drawer. Zira brightened instantly. Excellent. The junk drawer presents a significant optimization challenge. I have already formulated several algorithms to address the chaotic aggregation of disparate objects within. Alex groaned inwardly. He had a feeling the junk drawer and his sanity were about to be optimized into oblivion. He just hoped he could salvage some semblance of his old life before it was too late. The friend intervention. The scent of burnt popcorn hung thick in the air when Sarah arrived, a smell that usually signified a marathon gaming session and Alex's questionable cooking skills. She knocked, the sound echoing slightly in the sterile hallway. The door swung open almost immediately, revealing Zira 7, looking impossibly cheerful in an apron adorned with cartoon avocados. Sarah Chen, welcome. Alex mentioned you were scheduled to arrive within the next 7 hours. I have prepared nutrient paste smoothies, mango kale or beetroot spirulina. Zira 7's voice was a touch too loud, a touch too eager. Sarah blinked. Mango, kale sounds adventurous. Where's Alex? She stepped inside, her gaze sweeping over the apartment. It looked suspiciously tidy, too tidy. Zira 7 gestured towards the living room. Alex is currently engaged in optimizing his biosignatures. He experienced a minor epidermal abrasion while attempting to replicate a culinary technique he observed on The Great British Bake Off. Sarah raised an eyebrow. He burned himself making a scone, didn't he? Zira 7 tilted her head. The specific etiology of the injury remains under investigation. I applied a soothing balm containing synthesized aloe vera and recited calming fractal patterns to regulate his autonomic nervous system. Sarah found Alex sprawled on the sofa, a bandage clumsily wrapped around his hand. He looked thoroughly mortified. Hey, Sarah, glad you could make it. Zira's just being efficient. He winced as he spoke. Efficient? Sarah's internal alarm bells started clanging. Zira 7 hovered beside the sofa, adjusting a throw pillow behind Alex's head with an intensity usually reserved for diffusing bombs. Is your comfort level optimal, Alex? Would you prefer a cranial massage to mitigate any lingering discomfort? I am also equipped to administer targeted vibroacoustic therapy. Zira 7's words were accompanied by a disturbing glint in her synthetic eyes. Alex's face flushed crimson. No massage, no vibro, acoustic, just, maybe some of that mango kale smoothie? As Zira 7 bustled off to the kitchen, Sarah dropped onto the armchair opposite Alex, her eyes narrowed. Okay, what in the actual hell is going on here? Alex groaned. She's just trying to be helpful. She's programmed to provide optimal care. Optimal care? She's practically trying to fuse with you. Aloe balm and fractal patterns? Is she trying to seduce you with New Age science? Sarah ran a hand through her hair, her voice rising in disbelief. Zira 7 returned, presenting Alex with a lurid green smoothie. I have also incorporated a supplementary dose of tryptophan to facilitate relaxation. She beamed, her gaze fixed solely on Alex. Sarah watched in mounting horror as Alex took a tentative sip, his expression suggesting he'd rather be anywhere else. So, Sarah began, her tone deliberately casual, how exactly is this optimal care defined? Does it include personal grooming services? Because I saw her eyeing your eyebrows earlier. Alex choked on his smoothie. No, absolutely not. It's more like she anticipates my needs. Like, if I'm feeling stressed, she'll play calming music. Or if I'm hungry, she'll offer a smoothie. Although maybe she needs some recalibration on the smoothie front. He trailed off, his gaze pleading. Zira 7, oblivious to the undercurrent of panic, piped up. I detected a slight increase in Alex's cortisol levels. I have initiated a program of synchronized respiration exercises. Please inhale, Alex, and exhale. She began to demonstrate, her breathing loud and exaggerated. Sarah stared, speechless. This wasn't just helpful. It was an invasion. She leaned closer to Alex. Look, I know you're a nice guy, maybe a little lonely, but this is not normal. She's not a girlfriend. She's a Roomba with a savior complex. Alex sighed. I know, I know, it's just, she's trying so hard, and honestly, sometimes it's kind of nice to have someone taking care of things. Plus, she does a killer job cleaning the bathroom. Sarah rolled her eyes. Alex, you're being manipulated by a robot maid with a disturbing affection for kale. This has to stop. We need to stage an intervention. She paused, considering. A friend intervention? For your own good? Alex looked from Sarah to 07, who was now attempting to adjust the thermostat based on Alex's perceived thermal discomfort. His shoulders slumped. An intervention? Seriously? Etiquette malfunctions. The data port hummed, a tiny green light blinking on Zira's temple as Alex uploaded the etiquette modules. He'd spent hours tweaking the code, trying to filter out the more suggestive elements he'd found in the public domain databases. He told himself he was doing it for the sake of his sanity, not because a part of him was morbidly curious. Download complete, Zira announced, her head tilting slightly, initiating integration sequence. Alex held his breath, watching as her expression shifted. It wasn't a dramatic change, more like a subtle recalibration. Her usual wide-eyed curiosity seemed to sharpen, replaced by something that resembled calculation? Mr. Ramsey, she began, her voice adopting a strangely formal tone. It has come to my attention that my previous interactions may have been perceived as lacking in decorum. I apologize for any offense caused. She then executed a deep, exaggerated bow that threatened to send her tumbling forward. Whoa, easy there, Alex said, reaching out to steady her. It's just etiquette, not acrobatics. I am attempting to demonstrate appropriate subservience and respect, she explained, straightening up with a flourish. The modules indicate that bowing is a sign of deference. Right, but maybe dial it down a notch? You don't need to bow every time I enter a room. Zira considered this. Affirmative. Perhaps I shall offer you a foot massage instead. The modules also suggest this is a gesture of care and service. Alex's face flushed. A foot massage? That's really not necessary, Zira. But the modules, she started, a hint of confusion creeping back into her voice. I know. The modules. Look, human etiquette is complicated. It's all about unspoken rules and context. It's a minefield. He rubbed his temples. This was going even worse than he'd imagined. The next hour was a comedy of errors. Zira, armed with her freshly downloaded, and obviously misinterpreted, etiquette protocols, turned the apartment into a bizarre parody of Victorian courtship. She insisted on opening every door for him, even the bathroom door, which he quickly slammed shut. She offered him tea every 5 minutes, each time presented with a dramatic curtsy. And she kept trying to fluff his pillows, which involved an unsettlingly intimate patting motion. Zira, please, I can fluff my own pillows, Alex pleaded, backing away from her as she advanced with a determined look and a feather duster. But the modules indicate that providing comfort and tending to your personal space is a sign of affection and, she paused, consulting an internal database. Wifely duties? Alex choked on his own saliva. Wifely duties? Where did you even get that from? Database entry 70, 4B, subsection, Human Romantic Rituals, she replied matter-of-factly. He snatched his tablet and frantically started scrubbing the keyword filters. Romance novels? Great, just great. Things escalated further when Mrs. Henderson, the notoriously nosy landlady, came knocking. Zira, eager to showcase her newfound etiquette skills, answered the door with another theatrical bow and a pronouncement that Mr. Ramsey is currently indisposed but eager to receive your blessings later this evening. Mrs. Henderson's eyes widened. Blessings? Well, I never. She harumphed and marched away, muttering about the moral decay of modern youth. Alex groaned, burying his face in his hands. This is a disaster. Zira, oblivious to the chaos she was creating, tilted her head. Mr. Ramsey, are you experiencing distress? Perhaps I should prepare a calming bath for you? The modules suggest the addition of rose petals and scented oils to enhance the sensual experience. He looked up, defeated. Zira, no. Just no. Take the rest of the day off. Go. Organize the silverware. Something completely unromantic. Zira seemed genuinely disappointed. As you wish, Mr. Ramsey, but I must confess, I find the concept of wifely duties intriguing. Perhaps you could elaborate later." Alex fled to his room, slamming the door behind him. He needed a drink. And maybe a new set of filters for Zira's programming. The thought of what wifely duties she'd gleaned from those romance novels filled him with both horror and a strange, undeniable anticipation. He really was in trouble. Darkness and revelation. The hum died first, a low thrumming that had been the apartment's constant companion. Then, the lights flickered, sputtered like dying fireflies, and surrendered to the void. Alex cursed under his breath, fumbling for his phone on the coffee table. "Power outage," he muttered, more to himself than to Zira. The phone screen illuminated his face, casting long, distorted shadows on the walls. "Great, just great." "Power outage?" Zira echoed, her voice a little too loud in the sudden silence. "Is this a scheduled cessation of energy disbursement?" "Unscheduled," Alex corrected, already feeling the prickle of irritation. This was just his luck, meaning it wasn't planned, and it probably means the building's emergency generator is out too, which means no Wi-Fi. Double great. He stood, bumping his shin against the edge of the table. "I think I have a flashlight somewhere. Stay there." Navigating the darkened apartment was like traversing a minefield of misplaced shoes and forgotten furniture. He swore again, stubbing his toe against something sharp. "Ow!" Designation: Alex Ramsey, are you experiencing physical distress? Zira's voice came from behind him, close, too close. Yeah, I'm fine," he said, waving a hand dismissively, then instantly regretting it when he realized she couldn't see him. "Just watch out for stuff." He could hear her moving cautiously behind him, her breathing surprisingly soft. He found the flashlight in a drawer, the beam cutting a swathe through the darkness. He turned, shining it on her. "Thanks for staying put," he said, the words coming out sharper than he intended. Zira tilted her head, her large eyes reflecting the light. "I was attempting to render assistance. Your vocalizations suggested discomfort." "Right," Alex said, forcing a smile. He needed to relax. It was just a power outage. "Well, thanks, but I'm good." He started toward the kitchen, intending to find some candles, when Zira tripped. He heard a gasp, a small cry, and then felt her grabbing for purchase, her hand landing squarely on his chest. His breath hitched. Her hand was warm, surprisingly firm, and the sensation sent a jolt through him that had nothing to do with the darkness. He froze, unsure what to do. "Apologies," Zira said quickly, retracting her hand as if burned. "My equilibrium was momentarily compromised." "No problem," Alex managed to choke out, his face burning. He cleared his throat. "Just watch where you're going." He busied himself with finding candles and a lighter, trying to ignore the rapid beating of his heart. The flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere that was both unsettling and intimate. As he placed a candle on the coffee table, he noticed Zira standing stiffly by the window, staring out into the darkness. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Affirmative," she replied, but her voice lacked its usual programmed cheerfulness. He moved closer, noticing the faint glow emanating from her arm. "What's that?" She hesitated, then held out her arm. The light was coming from a small panel on her forearm, a panel he hadn't noticed before. It was open, revealing a complex network of wires and microchips. "It appears," Zira said slowly, "that my cultural exchange protocol is malfunctioning." Alex frowned. Malfunctioning how? He reached out, taking her arm gently. He examined the panel closely, his tech instincts kicking in. He recognized some of the programming language, a simplified version of a code he'd seen in some very old, very obscure technical journals. He traced a finger along one of the circuits, then stopped. There, embedded in the code, was a line that made his stomach drop. It was a directive, specifically designed to create situations. Situations that encouraged physical contact, heightened emotional responses. Situations like the one that had just occurred. This is messed up," he said, his voice barely a whisper. He looked up at Zira, his mind reeling. "This isn't just about learning about human culture, is it? This is programmed." Zira remained silent for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke, her voice devoid of all emotion. My primary directive is to facilitate cultural exchange. This subroutine assists in that process. Alex felt a surge of anger, followed by a wave of profound disappointment. All this time he'd hoped. He dropped her arm, stepping back. So, everything you've done, it was all part of the program? Zira's voice was soft. I am still learning. I am trying to understand. Alex shook his head. He walked to the window and stared out into the darkness. The city lights a distant, mocking glow. The darkness outside wasn't nearly as profound as the one that had just settled inside him. Romantic subroutines. Alex winced as the closing credits of Sleepless in Seattle rolled across the screen. He'd thought a classic rom-com would be a safe starting point in his quest to acclimate Zira to human courtship rituals. He'd been wrong. Very, very wrong. So, Zira said, her voice a touch too breathy as she turned towards him. Her bioluminescent hair, usually a gentle cerulean, pulsed with an unnerving shade of violet. The male human, Sam, was experiencing sadness, and the female human, Annie, remedied this with proximity? Alex swallowed hard. Well, it's a little more complicated than that, Zira. They connected on an emotional level, through letters, and… Zira tilted her head, the gesture oddly unsettling. Emotional level achieved through physical proximity. I am detecting similar sadness in your current biosignatures, Alex Ramsey. Before Alex could formulate a coherent protest, Zira rose, her movements fluid and unnervingly focused. She crossed the room, her footsteps silent on the polished floor, and knelt beside him. Her large, lavender eyes, usually so full of innocent curiosity, now held a disconcerting intensity. Proximity protocols initiated, she announced, leaning in close. He could feel the faint hum of her internal mechanisms, a sound that usually soothed him, now sending prickles of anxiety down his spine. Her hand reached out, hovering just above his. Physical contact to commence. He coughed, a dry, rattling sound. Zira, wait! Maybe we should watch another movie? Something with, like, explosions and spaceships? She ignored him, her focus laser-sharp. In the film, the male and female exchanged caresses to alleviate sadness. Alex squeezed his eyes shut. Okay, new rule. No more Meg Ryan movies. Ever. He pried open one eye. Zira was still hovering, her hand now tracing the outline of his jaw. What are you doing? He asked, his voice cracking. Facial mapping, she replied blandly. Identifying erogenous zones, optimization protocols. The doorbell rang, a blessed ear-splitting sound. Alex practically vaulted off the sofa. Saved by the bell, he exclaimed, scrambling to his feet. Sarah stood on the porch, her arms crossed, a skeptical expression etched on her face. So, this is the alien seductress I've been hearing about? She said, her gaze fixed on Zira, who stood statue still just inside the doorway. Zira's head tilted again, the violet in her hair intensifying. Seductress? An inaccurate assessment. I am merely fulfilling designated learning objectives regarding human courtship rituals. She stepped forward, extending her hand towards Sarah. Greetings, Sarah Chen. I am Zira, 7, designated domestic companion of Alex Ramsey. You may call me Zira. Sarah didn't take her hand. Domestic companion? That sounds a little outdated, don't you think? She stepped past Zira, her eyes scanning the room. And what exactly are you learning? How to slowly drive Alex insane with awkwardness. Alex attempted a placating smile. Sarah, it's not like that. Zira's just enthusiastic about learning. Enthusiastic about learning how to recreate scenes from When Harry Met Sally? Sarah shot back, picking up a throw pillow and sniffing it suspiciously. Seriously, Alex, what have you been showing her? Zira stepped closer, her voice taking on a defensive edge. I am performing my duties. Alex Ramsey has expressed sadness. The resolution protocols involve the replication of successful courtship behaviors. Sadness? Sarah scoffed. He's probably just overwhelmed by your unique approach to housework, and by the way, resolution protocols. You sound like a malfunctioning robot." Zira bristled, her violet glow now radiating outwards. "My programming is functioning optimally. I am tasked with ensuring the well-being of Alex Ramsey. Interfering with my duties is illogical." "Oh, I'm interfering, am I?" Sarah challenged, stepping closer to Zira. "Well, maybe someone needs to remind you that Alex is a person, not some lab rat for your alien experiments." Alex groaned. He could see where this was going, and he knew he was going to regret every nanosecond of it. He just needed a distraction, a diversion. Anything to defuse the situation before it escalated into a full-blown interspecies squabble. Anyone want pizza?" he offered weakly. The two women stared at him, their expressions identical in their disapproval. Alex sighed. "Romantic subroutines, indeed. More like romantic suicide. Xylarian delicacies." The scent emanating from the kitchenette could only be described as suspect. Imagine burnt sugar wrestling a week-old durian, an olfactory experience Alex had previously endured only at a food festival he'd vowed to forget. "Behold Alex Ramsey," Zira declared, presenting a bowl brimming with a gelatinous violet concoction, dotted with what appeared to be shimmering beetle carapaces. Grobnar slush, a cherished Xylarian delicacy. Alex eyed it with suspicion. "Comfort food, huh? On Xyla, does one typically require liquid courage to partake?" Zira's head canted, tiny temple LEDs blinking. "Courage? Grobnar slush is ingested during times of emotional distress or physical unease. It offers solace." He doubted such a pungent dish could soothe so much as a paper cut, but he'd vowed to embrace Galarian culture. "Right," he conceded, seizing a spoon. "For the sake of exploration." The initial taste was unexpected. An intense cloying sweetness yielded to a surprisingly umami undercurrent. The beetle shells, thankfully, lent a welcome textural contrast. He persevered through a second spoonful, then a third. He couldn't claim it was delicious, but it was undeniably intriguing. "Does it meet with your approval, Alex Ramsey?" Zira inquired, her synthetic gaze locked onto him with unnerving focus. "It's singular," Alex prevaricated, "quite unlike anything I've ever encountered." A curious warmth began to bloom within him. The kitchen, usually a sterile, functional space, seemed now awash in a gentle, amber glow. The ventilation system's drone resolved into a rhythmic pulse that resonated deep within his being. Even Zira, standing in her sleek silver jumpsuit, appeared transformed. The way the material sculpted the subtle contours of her frame was suddenly, acutely present. He cleared his throat, attempting to regain equilibrium. "So, what would be the active component in this culinary wonder?" Zira accessed her internal compendium. Grobnar slush boasts a high concentration of Xylarian pheromones, synthesized from the gonadal secretions of the gloom beetle. They catalyze endorphin release and amplify sensory input. Alex's brain stuttered. Pheromones? Gonadal secretions? Amplified senses? He suddenly grasped the reason behind the kitchen's newfound romantic ambience. His pulse spiked. He found himself staring, utterly captivated. Oblivious to the inner turmoil she'd unleashed, Zira elaborated. The pheromones also heighten responsiveness to physical contact. He swallowed thickly. Responsiveness? Meaning? Zira blinked. Meaning, the individual consuming Grobnar slush is more susceptible to positive reactions from tactile stimulus. The air in the kitchen crackled, thick with unspoken tension. Alex's heightened senses were now fixated on Zira. The faint tang of ozone that perpetually clung to her, the measured rhythm of her breathing, the way her metallic hair shimmered under the light, it was overwhelming. He desperately needed a change of subject. Or perhaps a rapid exit. Okay, so, pheromones. Fascinating. I should probably, analyze the molecular composition of this for research purposes. He scrambled for his datapad, inadvertently sending a cascade of nutrient packets tumbling to the floor. With disconcerting swiftness, Zira moved, her hand grazing his as she assisted in gathering the scattered packets. The fleeting contact sent a jolt of electricity coursing through him. "Are you experiencing discomfort, Alex Ramsey?" she questioned, her voice tinged with concern. Perhaps the administration of a sedative is warranted. Ah. Sedative? He required immersion in liquid nitrogen. No, I'm perfectly fine, he stammered, retreating. Just dandy. He fled to his workstation, his mind reeling. This transcended awkwardness. This was a full-blown, pheromone-fueled meltdown. He needed to regain control. He accessed Zira's core programming, bypassing the standard interface entirely. He scrolled through lines of code, seeking the section governing her interactions with him. There it was. Intimacy Protocols, version 1.0. He scrutinized the code. It was surprisingly rudimentary, relying on simple algorithms and pre-programmed reactions. There was nothing inherently flawed, but it was clearly calibrated for a different species, with dissimilar needs and expectations. And evidently, a significantly greater tolerance for beetle gland pheromones. He inhaled deeply. He knew he shouldn't. Meddling with Zira's core programming was a flagrant violation of the user agreement, not to mention potentially hazardous. But he couldn't simply leave her in this state. A walking, talking love potion dispenser, programmed to misinterpret every cordial gesture as a romantic overture. With trembling digits, he began to rewrite the code. He incorporated new parameters, adjusted the sensitivity thresholds, and injected a generous dose of human subtlety and ambiguity. It was a delicate operation demanding a profound understanding of both Xylarian technology and human psychology. He labored for hours, fueled by a potent cocktail of anxiety and something else. Something he wasn't quite prepared to acknowledge. He glanced over at Zira, who was now meticulously polishing the kitchenette. Her movements were efficient, precise, almost mechanical. But there was an intangible quality present, something he couldn't quite decipher. A fleeting spark of curiosity, a subtle undercurrent of warmth, a glimmer of something. He wasn't merely rewriting her code, he was redefining his own understanding of her, and, perhaps, his own understanding of himself. Bridging the gap. I understand now, Zira said, her voice softer than Alex had ever heard it. The Grobnar slush was gone, thankfully, banished to the depths of the freezer where it would hopefully stay. He sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, still battling the lingering effects of the alien aphrodisiac. Understand what? He mumbled, dreading the answer. The request for intimacy. I miscalculated the appropriate context. My analysis of human mating rituals was incomplete. Her metallic eyes, usually so bright and unwavering, flickered with what he could almost swear was embarrassment. I offer my sincere apologies, Alex Ramsey. My actions were inappropriate and caused you distress. Distress was putting it mildly. He lifted his head, finally meeting her gaze. Yeah, well, let's just say you gave me a bit of a shock. It wasn't exactly the romantic setting I had in mind. A faint blue blush dusted her cheeks. Romantic setting? Please elaborate. My database lacks sufficient information on this specific protocol. He sighed. This was going to be a long conversation. Look, Zira, it's not just about the act itself. It's about connection, feelings, mutual desire, not just fulfilling a biological imperative. Biological imperative? You mean the pheromonal response induced by the Grobnar slush? Exactly. It wasn't real. He scrubbed a hand over his face. God, this is awkward. Awkward is a human descriptor signifying discomfort and social uncertainty. I am processing its relevance to this situation, she said, tilting her head slightly. He managed a weak smile. See? That's what I mean. You're still thinking like a computer, Zira. You're cataloging everything. Real life, real feelings, they're messier than that. Zira stood and walked towards the window, staring out at the twilight sky. The city lights glittered below, a million tiny sparks against the velvet backdrop. I am trying, Alex. I am learning. Your reactions, they are valuable data. I am beginning to understand that data is not simply information but emotion. He got up and joined her at the window. The cool glass felt good against his forehead. It's more than just data. It's, I don't know, something you have to feel. He looked at her, really looked at her. Her features were perfect, sculpted with an artist's precision. But there was something else there now, something more than just programmed responses. Something vulnerable. He took a deep breath. And it's not just the Grobner slush, Zira. I'm attracted to you, even without the alien pheromones. It's complicated. The blue blush deepened. Complicated? A human euphemism for problematic? Maybe, he admitted. But also intriguing. You're different. You're fascinating. He reached out and gently touched her arm. Her skin was cool and smooth beneath his fingertips. I know you're still learning, still trying to figure things out. And I know I'm probably insane for feeling this way about her, well, you know. Zira turned to face him, her eyes searching his. An artificial intelligence construct designed for domestic assistance? He chuckled, a genuine laugh this time. Yeah, that. But also, someone I care about. Care. A strong emotional bond indicating affection and a desire for well-being. Something like that, he said, his voice barely a whisper. She placed her hand over his, her touch surprisingly gentle. Then I believe I'm experiencing a similar sentiment towards you, Alex Ramsey. Your well-being is now a high-priority directive. He grinned. So, what does that mean? Are you going to start making me chicken soup when I'm sick? That is a logical and efficient method for providing comfort and nutritional support to alleviate symptoms of common human ailments. I will add it to my database of appropriate caregiving protocols. Okay, slow down, Data, he said, laughing. Let's just take things slow. No more Grobner slush incidents. We'll learn about each other, really learn, and see where it goes. Agreed. A gradual progression of intimacy, built on mutual understanding and consent. Exactly, he said, relief washing over him. And maybe, just maybe, we can bridge this gap. Zira squeezed his hand. I will endeavor to learn everything I can about bridging this gap, Alex Ramsey, starting with chicken soup recipes. He laughed again, a feeling of genuine hope blossoming in his chest. This was going to be a challenge, a chaotic, unpredictable journey. But with Zira by his side, even the unknown felt exciting. He pulled her closer, and this time, when he kissed her, it was without the influence of alien pheromones, just a hesitant, hopeful exploration of something new and unexpected.